call your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I'll give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, and maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. What caused Youngstown to terminate their middle school football season? Dan Pompley has a report published September 25th on how Youngstown School Superintendent Jeremy Batchelor decided to cancel the remainder of the middle school football season. Now, according to other reports, this is not the first time this occurred. I'm talking about the fighting at the game. Now, the report goes on to say that one of Cheney's middle school cheerleaders said that some East students vandalized the Cheney locker room and damaged property and stole money and belongings, causing retaliation, thus resulting in a fight after a trophy was presented after Cheney won the game. Now, as of the airing of this show, no criminal charges have been filed. The report goes on to say that it was retaliation due to the Cheney volleyball team being vandalized days before the volleyball team's season was not. Days before this event occurred, the volleyball team's season was not canceled, but the football team's season was. So there's a lot going on in this report. Now, the fact that good kids are being punished for others' bad behavior is what got the story in. The story is still developing. Each team still has 3 games left in their season, but it looks like they will not be played. That's why story number 1 made it in this week. Story number 2. State honors 2 local residents. The state. 2 Mahoning Valley residents are being honored by being placed in the Ohio Senior Citizens Hall of Fame, sponsored by the Ohio Department of Aging. Dr. George B. Beelan, who is the founder of the Ohio Cultural Alliance, and Marcia L. Herman Walker. She is also in the she served as president of the Youngstown Police Chaplain Corps. Now, according to the report published by the Vindicator on September 23rd, the Ohio Senior Citizens Hall of Fame honors and recognizes the vital role older adults play in their communities, thus getting these 2 local citizens to be honored. The state, and they're being honored by the state and the nation in this whole ordeal. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Congratulations. Story number 3. $2.5 million in local police grants. U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, a Democrat in Ohio, welcomed a $13.5 million investment to retain or hire 112 Ohio law enforcement officers to serve 13 communities and law enforcement agencies across Ohio. And this has included Youngstown and also including Austintown and Lake Milton. Now, that's word for word according to the Vindicator staff report published September 19th. So $1,612,170 is going to Youngstown to hire 15 law enforcement officers, $750,000 to Austintown Township's Police Department to retain 6 law enforcement officers, and $125,000 to Milton Township to hire 1 law enforcement officer. So story number 3 made it. Story number 4. Safety is still a concern after a hit and run. Quite some time ago, East High School lost a child who was hit by a bus. Now the city high school is back in the headlines again after city officials are investigating how a student was struck by a car in front of the school at about 9 a.m. last Friday. The police used traffic and surveillance cameras to locate the vehicle and the 46-year-old driver, who was later arrested and charged for fleeing the scene. Now, the report goes on to explain how the driver had a suspended license, folks. This story is still developing. That's getting story number 4 to the top 8. Big. Story number 5. $3.1 million to Boardman from FEMA. $3.1 million is headed to Boardman in what the staff report out of the Vindicator calls a Phase 1 grant for flood reduction. The money is set to come from the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Flood Mitigation Assistance Program. The program provides funding for projects that reduce disaster losses and protect life and property from future flooding, as quoted by Tom Sivak, who is the regional administrator for FEMA Region 5. Now, the entire report maps out the most of the fund maps out what most of the funds will be used for and maps out extensive projects. That's my story number 5. Story number 6, redistricting lawsuits. The redistricting lawsuits are back in the headlines. Once again, a federal court panel has rejected a request to alter or amend its decision to dismiss a lawsuit from the 3 residents of Youngstown who requested a change to Ohio's congressional redistricting lines. Now, according to the 3 residents, they feel that the map disenfranchises black voters. Now, it appears that the motion was filed by the residents because they feel that the state's congressional map violates Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965, which requires that a proposed new district must have a black majority to nominate a candidate, and one centered around Youngstown and Warren doesn't meet that requirement. Now, that's word for word in the report. Now, the report is long and is filled with information on what the fight is over. This story is still developing, and if race is a factor, seems to be the main talking point by the plaintiffs. That's why story number 6 also made to the top 2 this week. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week with one objective, and that's to keep people informed. There's a movement every week in here with news, top 8 stories just to keep you informed. Story number 7, why we all may be late on property taxes in this tough economy. Now, it could be a reality check for the Mahoning County Auditor, because the page warning of property tax delinquencies could include just about everyone in the valley who owns some property. Not everybody, but almost about 38 to almost 40-some%. This is according to Ralph Meacham, the auditor. Now, this is after Mahoning County Auditor, I'll go ahead and say his name again, Ralph Meacham, issued a press release Wednesday making people aware that property taxes will be included in a list of delinquent property owners published November 7th and November 21st in the Vindicator. The article goes on to point out some key data points showing a struggling population trying to keep up with past and present property tax bills. Property taxes continue to be a hot topic in recent headlines and talk radio discussions, because they're even talking about raising them to pay for some levies to pay some bills. That's why story number 7 made it this week. Big headline. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week. I dance, put on my tie, smile in the mirror, say, Brian, you can keep people informed. If you do not get to wake up this early, you can also check out the website. I do upload the show to our YouTube page on the website. So if you don't get up this early, you can check it out on the website. Story number 8, Girard sees big collections for speed cameras. This is the top story this week for a reason. The Vindicator has a report published September 24th by Bob Coupland. He's explaining how the Girard Police Department speed cameras have collected more than $1 million in fines for nearly 9 months of the year, and plan to use the funds to help with future road projects and other city needs. So they're taking this money and they're trying to put it to good use. Now, the report goes on to explain how the camera money has increased from last year. The city ended 2023 with $1.5 million in speed camera collections, and with just 3 months left to go, they're on target for more money to come in from these speed cameras. Now, the article is filled with insight on how the city is already making plans on what they will use the money for. The story is gaining the attention of law-abiding citizens who can barely make ends meet in the fight to ease inflation. So they're basically arguing, how can we pay for speed tickets, folks? Well, folks, there are top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
What does Method8inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, there was a big brawl at a local football game, and I guess everybody was talking about it because the superintendent decided to cancel the remainder of the middle school football season. And there's these big discussions about how usually good kids usually have to suffer for bad people's behavior. This happens a lot. And the parents are arguing about the kids, how they, basically stuff got damaged and they were traumatized. I remember really nothing has changed because when I was a kid, I used to play Little League football. I'll never forget it. This referee got into it with one of the coaches and bam, bust him in the head with the football. Next thing you know, he running out the field. To hit a 240. But the moral of the story is that they didn't cancel the season. All hell had broke loose. Fights broke out. Little League cheerleaders falling out of place and all falling on the ground, and women's breasts falling out their bras. It was brutal. And I'll never forget this fight. But it taught me something about life, And nowadays, nothing has changed. Sports is like a cult. I remember when I was playing football in high school and I got hurt. And I decided I didn't want to play anymore because the track coach had told me, he said, Brian, you'd be better off just getting healthy because we may need you during the track season. So I decided not to play. And, oh, man, I was getting evil looks. And people walking down the hall and, quitter, Brian. I'm riding down the street in my mom's car, see billboard signs, and the world don't like quitters. I was devastated, Confidence was down. But nothing has really changed. Sports has got to the point where kids are fighting and vandalizing property taxes. Not property taxes. Ooh, too much taxes in the business. But they vandalizing and destroying stuff for the pride in their team. So as a superintendent, you got to come with a decision. Do you cancel the season or do you just let them go play? Well, the superintendent decided to cancel the season. And you have to ask yourself how this will affect these kids as they condition over time. They're losing 3 games that they work for. And how do you punish good people for bad behavior? These are the questions, you know. And I've learned that no matter how hard it gets, the smartest thing, usually the wisest thing for kids is just to keep going. I'm in here every week. Sometimes I may like be discouraged. Somebody may cuss me out, Brian, you ain't nothing. You ain't going to be nothing. And I'd be like, man, I don't even feel like doing the show. But I come in here and I just keep going. People get over it. Time goes on. You never know. These kids may apologize, be friends. Why cancel the season, folks? That's our message this week. Why cancel when you can keep going? All hell is breaking loose across the world. Kids ain't got nothing to do as it is. Let them keep playing football, folks. Let's waste no time. Why cancel the season? If they gonna fight, put them in the boxing ring. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Speaking of kids, Generation Z is in the spotlight. Dave Ramsey says in an article by MoneyWise that he is fed up with millennials and Generation Z. These are not uncommon claims by the older generation, who sometimes forget that they used to be young as well. Now, he goes on to explain how Generation Z does not work, but seems to want the finer things in life, like homes. He said they don't want to work. The report goes on to list the things that he feels will help Generation Z be successful. Now, we got this story our recent stories making headlines focusing on the career decisions that young Americans are making, and one being them deciding not to go to college. Now, if you don't know, 900,000 less graduates did not enroll in college, and many are deciding to go into the trades. Now, this is the second week in a row that Generation Z has made it in the headlines. Now, one CNBC headline even explains how young adults are even deciding not to have children to save money. And some of them may be discouraged because of fights that break out at football games. Big. Story number 2. Trump plans to help businesses. One report by CNN explains how Trump says that he plans to help U.S. businesses through tariffs and taxes. The report goes on to explain how the plan to slash the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21% in what the article calls the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, this is compared to Harris's plan, who she says she wants to tax capital gains by 28%. So either way, they're just looking at the tax solution. Now, this story is staying in the headlines due to the concerns about which plan will actually help the economy. That's why story number 2 made it this week. Story number 3. Has it gotten out of hand in the Middle East? Some will probably say yes. Civilians are being killed in the Middle East. That's a fact. Now, Reuters has a report explaining how the U.S. has had to send additional forces to the region. This is after the Israeli military struck Hezbollah in Lebanon's south, killing a large number of civilians. Now, over the years, the people who have died in the Middle East fighting is far beyond the millions. I mean, it's a lot of people been dying over there just to try to get peace, and nothing seems to be happening, thus leaving the question of if the fighting will ever end. Some people are very discouraged about this. That's why story number 3 made it this week. Story number 4. America's classrooms are in top headlines. The Hill has a report claiming that by having the internet in the classrooms, it has already harmed learning. The headline goes on to say that if we add artificial intelligence, it will only make things worse. This is in the midst of the push to ban cell phones from the classrooms. Now, one key point, talking point mentioned in the report is the data after the internet was implemented inside of the classrooms. Now, U.S. students scores decreased from 504 in 2000 to 495 in 2003, and then to 489 in 2006. Mathematics scores declined from 493 in 2000 to 483 in 2003, and then to 474 in 2006. Now, science scores decreased also from 499 in 2000 to 491 in 2003, and then to 489 in 2006. This is after internet connectivity among American public schools reached 94% in 2005. The attention now is on current education data compared to the era when the internet usage was low or was not involved at all. Now, this story is still developing because as the data come in, analysts will probably be figuring out if the internet plays a factor in the fact that kids are not being educated as good as they used to be. That's why number 4 made this week. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't you go anywhere. You're on the Mediator. Me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Tune in to Method 8's YouTube channel to check out the top interviews that made it throughout the years and months. Visit method8inc.com. Check out all the community interviews if you want to check it out. Method8inc.com. Buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Oh, yeah. Welcome back. And now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. Folks, I have come up with this saying over my 17 years of serving my local community and doing the best I can to be righteous, is that it's hard to fix the way people think. And that's the biggest problem that we seem to be having. And that we got a next election coming up, and a lot of people just don't know who to vote for. I'm one of those people. So, you have to ask yourself, when no matter who gets in office, there's a lot of problems that need to be solved. So, yeah, they've got to be getting in there. And the fact is that you can sit there and tell a person, do this. Sometimes I tell my mom, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop smoking, stop drinking. She just keep doing it. Mom, listen, the bills need to be paid or they're going to shut the stuff off. She don't pay them. And then for some odd reason, when all hell breaks loose, people finally start getting the message. So this election, all hell seems to be breaking loose. And some people are just wondering what the hell is going on. For years, people have been complaining about uninformed voters, people voting on issues that they don't really know that much about, illegal people voting, people who have no clue what's going on voting, people who just voting because they think the politician is their friend. Folks, this year, there's a lot of deals being made. But the fact is that now that all hell seems to be breaking loose and food and money seems to be shorting up, will we finally get the picture? Even me. Who knows? That's why we got to get to these top 8 stories, folks. Let's waste no time. We just keep chugging along, hoping that people will finally get the picture, do their research, get to understand what's going on, where the money is coming from. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Who do we vote for? Here's a new outlook on tariffs. The Atlantic has a report claiming that Americans will end up paying the tariffs. This is according to a conversation with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen focusing on the health of the U.S. economy. Yellen shared her view on Trump tariffs in the report by explaining how they could significantly disrupt the economy and reverse progress in reducing inflation. Now, this could motivate analysts to see what the Trump tariffs have done because they're still in place. They've been extended, but I think they're coming to it. I don't know. I gotta double check that. And if they have helped or not, they could analyze and see if they've helped or not. Now, thus getting this story to the top 8. The report is a good read for those wanting to comprehend what is actually taking place in the U.S. market from the perspective of someone with 30 years of experience. That's my story number 5 made in this week. Big B. Story number 6. Credit card debt remains in top headlines. CNN has a report focusing on how Americans are drowning in credit card debt. The report goes on to explain how Trump has proposed a cap on interest rates, but the headline by Elizabeth Buchwald it ends by saying it probably won't work. Now, America has $1.14 trillion of credit card debt, if you did not know, and the report goes on to explain how this is record high debt. Now, high interest rates were also mentioned in the report, thus leading Trump to bring attention to this matter by recommending a cap. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 6 all the way to the top 2 this week. Big story number 7 of the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that I made it this week for you. For one thing, to keep you informed. It's my main goal and purpose. And on top of that, to give you a smile while you're checking out some headlines. Story number 7. Unemployment is back in the headlines. ABC News has a headline focusing on how unemployment is low but rising quickly. The report was published September 23rd by Max Zahn. The report goes on to say that hiring remains solid but has slowed a bit from its peak during the rebound from the pandemic. I believe that's Zane or Zahn. I believe it's Zane. Max Zane. Now, the report also mentions the Fed rate cuts and the fact that over a 3-month period ending in August, employers added an average of about 116,000 jobs per month. The article also explains how the unemployment rate has climbed this year from 3.7% to 4.2%, thus getting this story into the top 8 this week as economists continue to eye the job market headed into the next election. So story number 7 also made to the top this week. Big. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. Rumbling and stumbling, dipping and dodging news stories just to give you the top 8. Story number 8. Recession news is staying in the headlines. Business Insider has a report published September 23rd by Jennifer Soar focusing on how a recession is coming as Americans run out of unemployment benefits. The article's main focus is spending and how the U.S. economy isn't on a solid footing, according to Daniela DiMartino Booth. Now she goes on to cite how she homes in on some of the weaknesses in the U.S. market right now, especially the job market, because the benefits are coming to an end. That means employment benefits in many states. Now, one key stat in the article is the fact that the average unemployment duration in the U.S. has climbed to 21 weeks in September. Now, the article also focuses on the number of part-time workers in the U.S. and goes on to mention how this number has climbed to an all-time high. The purpose of the entire piece seems to be getting the attention on, seems to put the attention on the job market, which we need, and the fact that if employment benefits expire, a lot of people could be searching for a paycheck. That means money to put in the economy, money to buy things, and on top of that, inflation is still high. So I started rate made to the top this week, because when you're hearing recession talks, that's not good. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a mediator, the man in the middle, navigating your story just to keep people informed. If you want to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program, or you can stop at the store at 5648 Mark Street in Boardman, Ohio, and buy something for the store. Well, folks, I am out of here. I'll be back next week, look through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. Thank you for tuning into the Mediator this week with me, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.